Hey there, and welcome to Crazy Pepper, the channel where drama sizzles and revenge burns hotter than ever. If you love jaw dropping twists, bold characters, and stories that keep you guessing till the end, you're in the right place. Subscribe and dive into gripping tales of betrayal, karma, and ultimate payback. Get ready for unforgettable moments and satisfying endings, only on Crazy Pepper. Hit that bell and let the drama begin. The coffee was still brewing when my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. 7:15 a.m. on a Tuesday, and Celeste was already texting from her girls' trip to Napa. I figured it was another photo of overpriced wine or some complaint about the hotel Wi-Fi. Instead, I got this. Change of plans. You're staying home from Europe. My kids want their real dad. I read it twice, then a third time, waiting for the punchline or the follow-up message explaining what she actually meant. Nothing came. My name is Jack Vance, and I'm apparently not the real dad. Funny thing about betrayal, it doesn't hit you like a truck. It seeps in slow, like water through a cracked foundation. First comes the confusion, then the anger, then something colder, something calculating. I set the phone down and poured my coffee. Black, no sugar. Celeste always said that was too bitter, but right now it tasted perfect. My kids. Not our kids. Not the kids. My kids. I walked to the window overlooking our suburban street in Millbrook Heights. Perfectly manicured lawns, matching mailboxes, the kind of neighborhood where everyone waves and nobody talks about what really goes on behind closed doors. Mrs. Duffy was already out watering her roses, probably hoping to catch some gossip for her morning rounds. The Europe trip was supposed to be our second honeymoon. 20 years of marriage, 2 kids who barely looked up from their phones anymore, and a relationship that had turned into polite roommate status. Celeste had suggested we try to reconnect. I'd booked the flights, reserved the hotels, even learned some basic Italian phrases. Apparently, I'd been planning a solo vacation. I opened my laptop and started typing. First, the credit cards, all joint accounts frozen. Then the savings account, transferred to my personal checking. The Europe reservations, canceled, with full refunds thanks to travel insurance. The automatic payments for her gym membership, spa treatments, and that overpriced organic grocery delivery service terminated. By 9 a.m., I'd systematically dismantled our shared financial life. Every subscription, every automatic payment, every joint account, gone. I left one note on the kitchen counter. Congratulations on your new family, don't call me. Then I packed. Not everything, just enough clothes for a week, my laptop, important documents, and the emergency cash I'd kept hidden in my toolbox. Old military habit, always have an exit strategy. Mrs. Duffy was still in her garden when I loaded the car. She waved and I walked over. That's a lot of luggage, Jack. Midlife crisis or just running from the wife? Bit of both, Mrs. Duffy. She laughed, but her eyes were sharp. Nothing happened in Millbrook Heights without Mrs. Duffy knowing about it. Well, whatever it is, give 'em hell. Planning on it. I was backing out of the driveway when my phone rang. Celeste's ringtone, that annoying chime she'd set because it was classy. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again and again. At the red light on Elm Street, I finally listened to the messages. Jack, what the hell? My card was declined at breakfast. Call me back right now. Jack, I'm serious. Whatever game you're playing, stop it. We need to talk. Jack, you're being ridiculous. It was just a text. I was drunk. Call me back. Just a text. Right. The fourth message was different. Quieter. More careful. Jack, please, I know you're angry, but we can work this out. I made a mistake. Come home and we'll talk. I was about to delete them all when the phone buzzed with a new voicemail. But this one wasn't for me. David, it's me. He took the bait. Jack's gone, and he's making it easy by throwing his tantrum. Now we can finally be open about everything. Call me when you get this. Wrong number, pocket dial. Or maybe Celeste wasn't as careful as she thought. David. I knew a David. David Kessler, real estate developer, drove a white Tesla, lived in one of those glass towers downtown. He'd been at a few school functions, always made a point of talking to the hot moms. I'd pegged him as a sleaze from day one. Apparently, my wife had a different opinion. I pulled into the parking lot of Murphy's Diner and called Ray Kowalski. We'd served together in Middle East, and now he ran a private investigation business out of a strip mall office. If anyone could dig up dirt on David Kessler, it was Ray. Jack, how's married life treating you? It's not. I need a favor, Ray. Big one. What kind of favor? The kind that involves finding out everything there is to know about a guy named David Kessler. Real estate, drives a Tesla. Probably thinks he's God's gift to women. Ray was quiet for a moment. This about Celeste? How'd you guess? Because you sound like you're planning someone's funeral. What happened? I told him about the text, the voicemail, the whole mess. Ray listened without interrupting, which was one of the reasons we'd stayed friends after the army. So you want me to investigate your wife's boyfriend? I want you to investigate everyone, Celeste, David, whoever else might be involved. I want to know how long this has been going on, what they're planning, and what kind of ammunition I can use. Jack, are you sure about this? Once we start digging, there's no going back. I thought about that text message, the casual cruelty of it, the way she'd reduced 20 years of marriage to change of plans. I'm sure. All right. Give me 48 hours, and Jack, stay out of trouble until then. I hung up and ordered coffee and eggs. The waitress was friendly, chatty, normal. She had no idea she was serving breakfast to a man whose life had just imploded. There was something liberating about that anonymity. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Celeste. Jack, you're scaring me. Please come home. We need to talk about this like adults. I typed back, adults don't send texts like the one you sent this morning. Enjoy Napa. Her response came immediately. I was drunk and angry. You've been distant for months. I didn't mean it. Sure you did. You just didn't mean for me to find out this way. That's not true. Then explain David. The typing indicator appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, I don't know what you're talking about. I forwarded her the voicemail she'd accidentally sent me. This time, the silence stretched for 20 minutes. When she finally responded, the mask was off. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Jack. Come home and we'll discuss this privately. Don't make this harder than it has to be. Too late for that. You wanted a change of plans? Congratulations. You got one. I turned off the phone and finished my breakfast. For the first time in months, I had an appetite. The Riverside Motel wasn't exactly 5-star accommodations, but it was clean, cheap, and most importantly, it was the last place anyone would look for a suburban project manager having a midlife crisis. I checked in under my own name, no point in hiding, and settled into room 237 with a view of the parking lot and a neon sign that flickered between vacancy and vacancy. Ray called that evening. Your boy David Kessler is an interesting character, he said without preamble. Want the highlights or the full report? Give me everything. David Michael Kessler, 42 years old, divorced 3 years ago. Ex-wife got the house in Westfield. He got the debts and a reputation for screwing around. Owns Kessler Development Group, which sounds impressive until you realize it's basically him and a secretary working out of a rented office. I grabbed a notepad from the nightstand. What kind of projects? Small stuff. Strip mall renovations, a few residential flips. He talks big, drives the Tesla, wears expensive suits, but the business is barely breaking even. He's leveraged to the eyeballs and about 6 months behind on his office rent. So, he's a fraud. Pretty much. But here's where it gets interesting. I pulled his cell phone records, don't ask how, and he's been calling Celeste regularly for about 8 months, sometimes multiple times a day. 8 months. I tried to remember what had been happening 8 months ago. Celeste had started working out more, buying new clothes, taking weekend trips with her girlfriends. I'd been happy she was finding new interests. There's more, Ray continued. I did some digging on Celeste too, hope you don't mind. Go ahead. She's been moving money around. Small amounts, but consistent. Transferring funds from your joint savings to a personal account you don't have access to. About $15,000 over the past 6 months. That hit harder than the phone calls. The betrayal was one thing, but stealing from our kids' college fund was something else entirely. How much more can you find out? Give me another day or two. I've got a contact at the bank who might be able to get more details. And Jack, there's something else you should know. What? David Kessler works out at Elite Fitness downtown. Every day at 6 p.m. like clockwork. Thought you might find that interesting. I knew Elite Fitness. Expensive, pretentious, full of people who spent more on their workout clothes than most people made in a week. It was exactly the kind of place a guy like David would go to show off. Thanks, Ray. Send me whatever else you find. Jack, what are you planning? I'm planning to get to know my wife's boyfriend. The next day, I bought a day pass to Elite Fitness. The girl at the front desk was all smiles and tight yoga pants, clearly hoping to sign up another middle-aged guy looking to recapture his youth. First time at Elite? Thinking about joining. Heard you get a better class of people here? She laughed. Oh, definitely. We've got lawyers, doctors, business owners. Really successful crowd. What about that guy over there? I nodded toward the weight area where a tall, dark-haired man in designer workout gear was doing bicep curls in front of the mirror. Looks like he knows what he's doing. That's David. He's here every day. Owns his own company, drives that gorgeous Tesla in the parking lot. Total catch, if you ask me. Married? Divorced? But I think he's seeing someone new. He's been in a really good mood lately. I bet he had. I spent an hour working out, staying close enough to observe David without being obvious about it. He was exactly what I'd expected. Vain, loud. The type who grunted unnecessarily during his sets and left his weight scattered around for someone else to clean up. He spent more time looking at himself in the mirror than actually exercising. At 7:15, he headed for the locker room. I followed. The locker room was empty except for us. David was checking his phone, probably texting my wife when I approached. Excuse me, you're David Kessler, right? He looked up, immediately suspicious. Yeah, do I know you? Jack Vance. I think we have a mutual friend. Recognition flickered in his eyes, followed quickly by calculation. He was trying to figure out how much I knew and how much trouble he was in. I don't think we've met. No, but you know my wife, Celeste. David straightened up and I could see him weighing his options. Run, fight, or try to talk his way out of it. He chose option 3. Look, Jack, I think there might be some misunderstanding here. Really? What kind of misunderstanding involves 8 months of phone calls and my wife telling you that her kids want their real dad? His face went pale. She told you about that? She told me a lot of things, accidentally. David closed his locker and faced me. He was bigger than I'd expected, probably had 40 pounds on me, but I'd been in enough fights to know that size wasn't everything. What do you want? He asked. I want to understand what kind of man goes after another man's wife. Help me out here, David. Is it the challenge, the thrill, or are you just too much of a loser to find your own woman? You don't know what you're talking about. I know Celeste's been transferring money to a private account. I know you're broke. I know you've been filling her head with ideas about leaving me. What I don't know is whether you actually care about her or if you're just looking for a meal ticket. David stepped closer, trying to use his size to intimidate me. You need to back off, Jack. Celeste is unhappy. She has been for years. I didn't steal her from you. You lost her all by yourself. Maybe, but you sure didn't mind picking up the pieces. She deserves better than what you've been giving her. And you think that's you? A broke real estate developer who can't even pay his office rent? That hit home. David's jaw tightened, and I could see him struggling to keep his temper. You don't know anything about my business. I know enough. I know you're leveraged to the eyeballs, behind on rent, and looking for someone to bail you out. Celeste must seem like a gift from heaven. Suburban housewife with a stable husband and a nice savings account. You're way out of line. Am I? Then prove it. Walk away from her. If you really care about Celeste, let her fix her marriage, instead of running away from it. David laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think she wants to fix things with you? Jack, she can't stand you. She told me you haven't touched her in 6 months. She said living with you is like being married to a ghost. That stung more than I wanted to admit, mostly because there was some truth to it. Celeste and I had been drifting apart for years, and I'd been too comfortable to do anything about it. So you decided to help her out. I decided to show her what it feels like to be with a real man. That was the wrong thing to say. I grabbed David by the front of his shirt and slammed him against the lockers. The crash echoed through the empty room. Here's what's going to happen, David. You're going to stop calling my wife. You're going to stop seeing her. And if I find out you've been anywhere near my kids, I'm going to make your life very unpleasant. David tried to push me away, but I had leverage and 20 years of accumulated anger. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening you. I'm explaining the new reality. Celeste might be done with our marriage, but I'm not done protecting my family from parasites like you. I released him and stepped back. David straightened his shirt, trying to salvage some dignity. This isn't over, Jack. You're right, it's not. I left him in the locker room and walked out through the main gym. The girl at the front desk waved cheerfully. How was your workout? Ready to sign up for a membership? I don't think this place is for me. Too many fake people. Outside, I took a closer look at David's Tesla. Beautiful car. Probably cost more than I made in a year. It would be a shame if something happened to it. I walked around to the driver's side and used my house key to carve a message into the paint. Home wrecker. Then I went back to my motel room and waited for Ray to call with more information. My phone rang at 10 p.m. It was Celeste. What did you do to David? Had a conversation. Why? He said you threatened him at the gym. I explained the situation. There's a difference. Jack, you can't keep acting like this. We're adults. We can work this out without drama. Adults don't steal money from their kids' college fund to impress their boyfriends. Silence. I know about the transfers, Celeste. I know about the phone calls. I know about all of it. Jack, please, come home. We need to talk face to face. I don't think so. I'm pretty comfortable where I am. Where are you staying? Somewhere you and David can't find me. This is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. No, I'm acting like someone who just found out his wife has been planning to leave him for 8 months. There's a difference. I wasn't planning anything. David and I are just friends. Friends don't tell each other that kids want their real dad. Friends don't steal money. Friends don't plan to be open about their relationship once the husband is out of the picture. Another long silence. How long have you known? Long enough to get very, very angry. What do you want, Jack? What's it going to take to fix this? I thought about that. What did I want? An apology, an explanation for things to go back to the way they were? I want you to understand that actions have consequences, Celeste. You wanted to change the plans? Fine. But you don't get to control how I react to those changes. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you that if you try to take my kids away from me, if you try to take my house, if you try to ruin my life, I will make sure everyone in Millbrook Heights knows exactly what kind of person you really are. You wouldn't. Try me. I hung up and turned off the phone. Tomorrow, Ray would have more information and I could start planning my next move. But tonight, I was going to enjoy the silence. Ray called the next morning with news that made my coffee taste even better. Your wife's been busy, Jack, really busy. How busy? She's been telling people at the school that you're having a breakdown, drinking too much, staying out late, talking about leaving town. She's been setting up a narrative that makes her look like the sufferer. I should have seen that coming. Celeste was always 3 steps ahead when it came to managing her image. What else? The money transfers are worse than I thought. She's moved almost $30,000 over the past 8 months. But here's the interesting part. Some of it went directly to David's business account. She's been funding his company. So she's not just cheating on me, she's bankrolling her boyfriend with our savings. Looks that way. And there's more. I talked to my contact at the bank. Celeste applied for a home equity loan 3 weeks ago. Didn't get approved because she doesn't have your signature, but she tried. $30,000. That was supposed to be Eli's college fund and Lila's braces money. It was our emergency fund, our safety net, our future. And Celeste had been feeding it to a failed real estate developer with a nice smile and an expensive car. Ray, I need you to document everything. Bank records, phone records, whatever you can get legally. If this goes to divorce court, I want an ammunition. Already on it. But Jack, there's something else you need to know. David Kessler isn't just broke, he's desperate. I found out he owes money to some people you don't want to owe money to. What kind of people? The kind who break kneecaps when you don't pay them back. He borrowed money from Tony Marconi's crew to fund a development project that went bust. He's into them for about $200,000. Tony Marconi. Even I knew that name. He ran numbers and loan sharking operations out of the North Side. Not exactly the kind of guy you wanted to default on. So David's looking for a quick way out of debt. And your wife looks like a lottery ticket. Suburban housewife, stable marriage, nice house, savings account. If he can get her to divorce you and marry him, he solves his money problems. It was worse than I'd thought. David wasn't just stealing my wife. He was using her to save his own life. There's one more thing, Ray continued. I've been watching David's apartment building. Celeste was there yesterday afternoon, stayed for about 3 hours. While she's supposed to be in Napa. Jack, I don't think she ever went to Napa. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What do you mean? I checked with the hotel she said she was staying at. No reservation under her name or any of her friends' names. I think the whole girls' trip was a cover story so she could spend time with David. So while I'd been feeling guilty about our marriage falling apart, Celeste had been playing house with her boyfriend and planning my exit from the picture. Ray, I need you to do me another favor. Name it. I want you to follow them today. Document everything, where they go, what they do, who they see. I want a complete picture of what my wife's been up to. You sure about this? Once you know, you can't unknow it. I'm sure. I hung up and sat in my motel room staring at the wall. 20 years of marriage, 2 kids, a house, a life together. And it had all been a lie for the past 8 months. My phone buzzed with a text from my daughter Lila. Dad, where are you? Mom said you had to go away for work, but your office called looking for you. Celeste was already spinning the story, making me the bad guy who abandoned his family. I texted back, I'm fine, sweetheart. Just taking some time to think. I'll call you tonight. Are you and Mom getting divorced? Smart kid, too smart for her own good sometimes. I don't know yet, but whatever happens, it's not your fault or Eli's fault. This is between me and your mother. I love you, Dad. I love you too. That text hit harder than anything Celeste had done. My kids were going to pay the price for their mother's betrayal, and there wasn't anything I could do to protect them from it. But I could make sure they knew the truth. I drove to Millbrook Heights Elementary, where Celeste worked as an administrative assistant. It was almost lunchtime, and I knew she'd be in the main office, handling the usual chaos of sick kids and forgotten homework. The school secretary, Mrs. Patterson, looked surprised to see me. Jack, how are you? Celeste said you were out of town on business. Just got back. Is she available? She's in the back office. Go on through. I found Celeste at her desk, looking perfectly composed and professional. She glanced up when I walked in, and I saw her mask slip for just a moment before she recovered. Jack, what are you doing here? We need to talk. This isn't the place. It's exactly the place. Public, professional, witnesses around. Perfect for a civilized conversation. Celeste stood up and closed the office door. You're making a scene. I haven't even started making a scene. How was Napa? She didn't answer. Funny thing about Napa, apparently you were never there. The hotel has no record of any reservation. Neither do the restaurants you've been posting about on social media. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. You've been shacked up with David in his downtown apartment, playing house and planning my exit from the family. The question is, does he know you've been stealing money to pay his debts? Celeste's face went white. Keep your voice down. Or what? You'll tell people I'm having a breakdown? Too late. I already know about that story too. Jack, please. Not here. Then where? Your boyfriend's apartment? The hotel you're not staying at? Or maybe we should have this conversation at home, in front of the kids you've been lying to. Don't you dare involve Eli and Lila in this. You already involved them when you told David they wanted their real dad. What was the plan, Celeste? Divorce me, marry him, and pretend like he's been their father all along? It's not like that. Then explain it to me. Explain how $30,000 of our kids' college money ended up in David Kessler's business account. Explain how you've been telling everyone I'm having a breakdown while you've been having an affair. Explain how any of this is supposed to be good for our family. Celeste sat down heavily in her chair. For the first time since this whole mess started, she looked defeated. You don't understand, Jack. You've been checked out for years. We don't talk, we don't laugh, we barely even look at each other anymore. I felt like I was dying inside. So you decided to eliminate our marriage instead of trying to fix it. I tried to fix it. I suggested counseling. I planned date nights. I tried to get you interested in things we could do together. You weren't interested. She was right about that, and it stung. I had been checked out, going through the motions, assuming everything would just continue on autopilot forever. You're right. I wasn't the husband you deserved, but that didn't give you the right to steal from our kids and lie to everyone about what was really happening. I didn't mean for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? How long were you planning to keep this secret? I don't know. David said what? That he'd take care of everything? That he'd solve all your problems? Celeste, the man is broke and desperate. He owes money to dangerous people. You're not his girlfriend. You're his escape plan. That's not true, isn't it? Ask him about Tony Marconi. Ask him about the $200,000 he owes in gambling debts. Ask him why he really needs your money. Celeste stared at me, and I could see the doubt creeping in. You're lying. I wish I was. But you can verify everything I just told you. The question is, are you going to keep pretending this is some great romance, or are you going to face reality? What do you want from me, Jack? I want you to stop lying to our kids. I want you to stop stealing money. And I want you to decide whether you want to try to save our marriage or end it honestly. And if I choose to end it, Then we'll get divorced like adults, split everything fairly, and figure out how to co-parent without destroying each other. But the lies stop now. Celeste was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked up at me with something that might have been regret. I never meant to hurt you, Jack. I just felt so lonely. I know, and I'm sorry for that. But loneliness doesn't excuse betrayal. What happens now? Now you decide what kind of person you want to be. The woman who lies and steals and destroys her family for a man who's using her? Or the woman I married 20 years ago who had enough integrity to face her problems honestly? I left her sitting in that office and walked out through the main hallway. A few teachers waved, and I waved back, wondering if they knew what was happening, or if they still saw me as just another suburban dad picking up his wife from work. My phone rang as I reached the parking lot. Ray. Jack, you need to see this. I've been following them, and they just had a very interesting conversation. Where are you? Coffee shop on Main Street. David just left, but Celeste is still here, and Jack? She's crying. I'll be right there. I drove across town wondering what Ray had witnessed. When I arrived, he was sitting in his car, across from the coffee shop, camera in his lap. What happened? They met here about an hour ago. Started out friendly enough, but then David got a phone call. After he hung up, they started arguing. I couldn't hear everything, but I got the impression someone was pressuring him about money. Tony Marconi's people? That would be my guess. Anyway, David got angry, started talking about how Celeste needed to speed things up with the divorce. He said he couldn't wait much longer. And how did she react? That's when she started crying. She said something about needing more time, that she couldn't just destroy her family overnight. David didn't want to hear it. He said she'd already made her choice and now she had to live with it. I looked through the coffee shop window and saw Celeste sitting alone at a corner table, staring into her cup like it held the answers to all her problems. There's more, Ray continued. After David left, she made a phone call. I think she was talking to her sister in California. I heard her say something about needing advice and not knowing what to do. So she's having second thoughts. Looks that way. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I thought about that. Part of me wanted to walk into that coffee shop and comfort her, tell her we could work things out, pretend like the last few days had never happened. But another part of me, the part that had been growing stronger since I got that text message, wanted to let her sit there and figure out her own mess. I'm going to let her make her choice, I said finally, but I'm going to make sure she understands what the consequences are. What do you mean? I mean, it's time for David to learn what happens when you mess with someone else's family. That night, I sat in my motel room planning David Kessler's downfall. It's amazing how creative you can get when you're properly motivated. I started with research. David's company, Kessler Development Group, had a website full of impressive photos and testimonials from satisfied clients. It looked professional until you dug deeper and realized most of the projects were small-time renovations and the testimonials were generic enough to be fake. His social media presence was more revealing. David loved posting photos of himself at expensive restaurants, driving his Tesla, working out at the gym. He was trying to project success, but the details told a different story. The restaurants were always during happy hour specials. The Tesla was leased, not owned. The gym membership was probably his one real luxury, paid for to maintain the image. Ray had given me David's schedule, and it was depressingly predictable. Coffee at Starbucks every morning at 7, office by 8:30, gym at 6, home by 8, unless he was with Celeste. I decided to start with his professional reputation. The next morning, I created several fake email accounts and started reaching out to David's business contacts. I posed as a concerned investor who had heard rumors about Kessler Development's financial stability. I asked innocent questions about payment schedules and project timelines, the kind of questions that would make people start wondering if their money was safe. Then I called the Better Business Bureau and filed a complaint about David's company, claiming he had taken a deposit for work that was never completed. I provided just enough detail to make it sound credible without being specific enough to be easily disproven. By noon, I had planted seeds of doubt with 3 of David's biggest clients and created a paper trail that would take him weeks to untangle. But I was just getting started. That afternoon, I drove to Elite Fitness and had another conversation with the chatty girl at the front desk. Hey, you're back. Decide to join after all? Still thinking about it. Actually, I had a question about that guy David you mentioned yesterday. A friend of mine is thinking about hiring his company for some work. but she wanted to check references first. Oh, David's great. Super successful, really nice car, always dressed well. Yeah, that's what she heard. But you know how it is. You want to make sure someone's legitimate before you give them money. Totally. Well, I don't know anything about his business, but he seems really professional. Although, she lowered her voice conspiratorially. What? Well, he got a phone call yesterday that seemed to upset him. He was talking really loud, and it sounded like someone was pressuring him about money. I probably shouldn't say anything, but it made me wonder if everything's as good as it seems. Huh. Well, my friend will probably do her own research anyway. Thanks for the heads up. I left Elite Fitness knowing that by tomorrow, half the gym would be whispering about David's money problems. That evening, I parked across the street from David's apartment building and waited. At 8:15, Celeste's car pulled into the parking garage. She was supposed to be getting home from her fake Napa trip today, but apparently she had one more stop to make. I followed her into the building and took the elevator to David's floor. The hallway was empty, but I could hear voices coming from apartment 4B. I pressed my ear to the door. Can't keep doing this, David. Jack knows about us. So, you said you were leaving him anyway. It's not that simple. He knows about the money too. What money? The transfers. He knows I've been moving money from our accounts. There was a long pause. Then David's voice, harder now. How much does he know? Everything, I think. He mentioned your business debts, said you owe money to dangerous people. That son of a witch has been investigating me. David, is it true? Do you owe money to criminals? It's complicated. That's not an answer. Look, Celeste, I had some bad luck with a project. I borrowed money to cover the losses and now I need to pay it back. That's all. How much money? Doesn't matter. Once we're married, we'll have access to your assets, the house, the savings, everything. We can pay off the debt and start fresh. You want to use my house to pay your gambling debts? It's not gambling. It was a business investment that didn't work out. David, I can't. You can't what? Back out now? Celeste, you've already burned your bridges with Jack. You think he's going to take you back after everything that's happened? Maybe. If I apologize, if I give back the money, there is no money to give back. I used it to make payments to Tony's people. It's gone. I heard something crash, probably a glass or plate. You spent my kids' college money on loan sharks? I spent it on keeping myself alive long enough to marry you and fix this mess. This is insane. I can't be part of this. You're already part of it. The minute you started transferring money, you became an accomplice. You think Tony Marconi cares whether you knew what the money was for? Are you threatening me? I'm explaining reality. We're in this together now, whether you like it or not. I heard footsteps approaching the door and quickly moved to the stairwell. Celeste emerged from the apartment, her face streaked with tears. She looked nothing like the composed woman who had sent me that text message a few days ago. I waited until she was gone, then knocked on David's door. Forget something? He called out, probably expecting Celeste. Not exactly. The door opened, and David's face went from confusion to anger when he saw me. What the hell are you doing here? Checking on my wife. She seemed upset when she left. You followed her here? I followed my curiosity. Interesting conversation you two were having. David tried to close the door, but I put my foot in the way. We need to talk, David. I don't have anything to say to you. That's fine. I'll do the talking. You spent my kids' college money paying off loan sharks. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you do. Tony Marconi's people have been pressuring you, so you convinced my wife to steal money from our accounts to buy you time. Now you're threatening her to keep her in line. You can't prove any of that. I don't need to prove it to Tony Marconi. I just need to tell him that you've been using his money to fund your affair with a married woman. How do you think he'll feel about that? David's face went pale. You wouldn't. Try me. See, here's the thing about desperate men, David. They make stupid decisions, like threatening the wife of someone who has nothing left to lose. What do you want? I want you to disappear. Tonight. Leave town, change your name, start over somewhere else. And I want you to stay away from my family. I can't just leave. Tony's people will find me. That's your problem. You should have thought about that before you started stealing from my kids. Celeste came to me. I didn't force her to do anything. No, you just manipulated a lonely woman into destroying her family to solve your money problems. That's so much better. David stepped back into his apartment, and I could see him calculating his options. Run, fight, or try to negotiate. What if I told Celeste it was over? What if I broke up with her and left town? I'd say it's too late for that. You've already done the damage. Then what do you want from me? I want you to understand that actions have consequences. You wanted to destroy my life? Fine. Now I'm going to destroy yours. I turned and walked away, leaving David standing in his doorway. I could feel him watching me until the elevator doors closed. Back in my car, I called Ray. I need you to make a phone call. What kind of phone call? The kind that lets Tony Marconi know that David Kessler has been using his money to fund an affair with a married woman, and that David's been telling people he borrowed the money for a business investment. Jack, are you sure about this? These aren't people you want to mess with. David's already messing with them. I'm just making sure they have all the facts. This could get him eliminated. That's his choice. He could leave town tonight and start over somewhere else. Or he can stay here and face the consequences of his decisions. And what about Celeste? I thought about that. What about Celeste? She was as much a sufferer as anyone else, manipulated by a desperate man into making terrible choices. But she was also an adult who had chosen to steal money and lie to her family. Celeste is going to have to figure out her own way out of this mess. But she's going to do it without David's help. All right, I'll make the call. But Jack, after this, you need to be very careful. If something happens to David, you don't want to be connected to it. Understood. I hung up and drove back to my motel room. Tomorrow, David Kessler would wake up to a very different world. And Celeste would have to decide whether she wanted to try to save our marriage or go down with her boyfriend's sinking ship. Either way, the lies were about to stop. I woke up to 17 missed calls from Celeste. The first voicemail was panicked. Jack, something's happened to David. Call me back right now. The last one was desperate. Jack, please, I know you're angry, but I need help. David's gone and there are men looking for him. I'm scared. I made coffee and listened to all 17 messages while watching the news. Nothing about David Kessler or Tony Marconi, but that didn't mean anything. People like Tony didn't make the morning news unless bodies were involved. Ray called at 8 a.m. Your boy David disappeared sometime last night. Neighbors saw him loading suitcases into his Tesla around midnight. Hasn't been seen since. Any word from Tony's people? They paid him a visit around 11 p.m. Apparently the conversation was brief and educational. Is he alive? As far as I know, but he got the message loud and clear. Word is, he's got 48 hours to pay what he owes or disappear permanently. And Celeste? That's where it gets interesting. She showed up at David's apartment this morning and found 2 of Tony's guys waiting for her. They wanted to know where David went and whether she had their money. What did she tell them? The truth, apparently. That David had been lying to her about everything and she didn't know where he was. They seemed to believe her, but they made it clear she was responsible for any money David had taken from her. So she's safe? For now. But Jack, these guys aren't going away. If David doesn't surface with their money, they're going to keep looking for ways to get paid. That's not my problem. It is if they decide Celeste is an asset they can liquidate. That stopped me cold. Whatever Celeste had done, I didn't want her getting hurt by loan sharks. What are you saying? I'm saying you might want to have a conversation with your wife about her options, because right now she's in way over her head. I hung up and stared at my phone. Celeste had made her choices, but she was still the mother of my children. I couldn't just let her twist in the wind, no matter how angry I was. I called her back. Jack, thank God, where have you been? Around, I heard you had some visitors this morning. You know about that? I know about a lot of things, Celeste. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I don't know. David's gone, the money's gone, and these men are saying I owe them $30,000. Do you? I don't know, maybe. David said the money was for his business, but apparently it was really for gambling debts. They said if I can't pay them back, they'll take it out of my house. Our house. Jack, please, I know I messed up, but I need help. I thought about that. Celeste had betrayed me, stolen from our kids, and destroyed our marriage. But she was also scared and alone, facing consequences she hadn't anticipated. Where are you now? At home. I didn't know where else to go. Stay there. I'm coming over. Thank you, Jack. Don't. We'll talk when I get there. I drove to Millbrook Heights for the first time since I'd left. The house looked exactly the same. Neat lawn, painted shutters, the basketball hoop Eli had wanted for his 13th birthday. From the outside, we still looked like a normal suburban family. Celeste was waiting in the kitchen, and she looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes red from crying. This wasn't the composed woman who had been planning my exit from the family. This was someone who had finally realized the consequences of her choices. Jack, I'm so sorry about everything. The text, the money, David, all of it. I never meant for things to go this far. But they did go this far, and now we have to deal with it. Those men this morning, they were scary, Jack. They said if I don't pay them back, they'll take the house. Our house. Where will the kids live? Tell me exactly what they said. Celeste sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten thousands of family dinners, helped the kids with homework, planned vacations that would never happen. They said David owed them $200,000 and he'd been making payments with money I gave him. They said that made me responsible for the debt. That's not how it works legally. They said they don't care about legal. They said debt is debt and someone has to pay it. How much did you actually transfer to David? About 30,000, maybe a little more. So, worst case, you owe them 30,000, not 200. That's still money we don't have. Not anymore. She was right about that. With the money gone and my trust destroyed, we didn't have $30,000 lying around. Celeste, I need you to understand something. I can't fix this for you. You made these choices and you're going to have to live with the consequences. I know that, but what about Eli and Lila? They didn't do anything wrong. No, they didn't. Which is why we're going to figure out a way to protect them. We? I'm not doing this for you, Celeste. I'm doing it for our kids. They shouldn't have to pay for your mistakes. What do you think we should do? I'd been thinking about that during the drive over. There weren't many good options, but there was one possibility. We're going to sell the house. What? Jack, no. This is our home. This is a house that's about to be taken by loan sharks if we don't do something. We sell it, pay off Tony's people, and use whatever's left to start over. But where will we live? That depends on whether there's still a we to worry about. Celeste stared at me across the table. What do you mean? I mean, you need to decide what you want, Celeste. Do you want to try to save our marriage, or do you want a divorce? Because I'm not going to spend the rest of my life wondering when you're going to betray me again. I want to save our marriage. Do you? Or do you just want me to solve your problems? I want both. I want you to forgive me, and I want us to be a family again. Forgiveness isn't the same thing as trust, and I don't trust you anymore. How do I get that back? I don't know if you can, but if you want to try, it starts with complete honesty. No more lies, no more secrets, no more stories about girls' trips that never happened. I'll do whatever it takes. Will you? Because it's going to mean admitting to our kids that you've been lying to them. It's going to mean telling our friends and neighbors what really happened. It's going to mean giving up your job at the school because everyone will know you stole money. Celeste's face crumpled. Jack, please, there has to be another way. There is. We get divorced, sell the house, split whatever's left after we pay your debts, and try to co-parent without eliminating each other. Your choice. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. No, Celeste. A choice would have been talking to me 8 months ago when you started feeling unhappy. A choice would have been suggesting marriage counseling instead of having an affair. A choice would have been being honest instead of stealing money and lying to everyone. I was scared. Of what? Of losing everything, of starting over, of being alone. So instead you decided to destroy everything and leave me alone. How's that working out for you? Celeste was crying now, and part of me wanted to comfort her. But a bigger part of me remembered that text message, remembered the voicemail about taking the bait, remembered $30,000 stolen from our kids' future. What happens if I choose to try to save our marriage? Then we sell the house, pay your debts, and start over. Probably in a smaller place, definitely with less money. You get a new job, probably not at a school since your reputation is shot. We go to marriage counseling, and you spend the next few years proving that you can be trusted again. And if I choose divorce, same thing, except that we split everything and go our separate ways. The kids live with me during the week and visit you on weekends. Why would they live with you? Because I'm not the one who stole their college money to fund an affair. Because I'm not the one who lied to them about where I was going. Because when this all comes out, and it will come out, they're going to be angry at you, not me. You'd turn them against me? I don't have to. You already did that yourself. Celeste sat in silence for a long time. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Duffy's dog barking and the sound of kids playing in the street. Normal suburban sounds from a life that no longer existed. If I choose to try to save our marriage, do you think you could ever love me again? That was the question I'd been avoiding. Did I still love Celeste? Had I ever really loved her, or had I just been comfortable with the routine we'd built together? I don't know, I said finally, but but I'm willing to find out if you are. Even after everything I've done? People make mistakes, Celeste. Big ones. The question is whether they learn from them or just keep making the same mistakes over and over. I want to try. Then we start by calling a realtor. And Celeste, when the kids ask why we're selling the house, you're going to tell them the truth, all of it. Jack, they're going to hate me. Maybe, but they'll hate you more if they find out you lied to them about this, too. My phone rang. Ray. Jack, we've got a problem. David's Tesla was found abandoned at the airport, but there's no record of him taking any flights. What does that mean? It means either he found another way out of town or he didn't leave at all. And Tony's people? They're not happy. Word is they think someone tipped them off about David's affair to distract them from the real money. What real money? Apparently, David had been skimming from Tony's operations for months. The $30,000 from Celeste was just the tip of the iceberg. They think David stole closer to $500,000. And they think someone helped him cover it up. They think someone gave David advance warning so he could disappear with their money. I looked at Celeste, who was watching me with growing alarm. Ray, how much trouble are we in? Hard to say, but if Tony's people think you or Celeste know where David went or where their money is, this isn't over. We don't know anything. I believe you, but they might not. I hung up and looked at my wife, my lying, cheating, money-stealing wife, who was still the mother of my children. Pack a bag, Celeste. We're not staying here tonight. Why? What's happening? Your boyfriend stole a lot more money than we thought, and some very dangerous people think we might know where he is, but we don't know anything. I know that, you know that, but they don't know that, and until they figure it out, we're not safe here. Where are we going to go? I don't know yet, but we're going to figure it out together. Does this mean you forgive me? I thought about that as I watched Celeste pack clothes into a suitcase, moving through our bedroom like a stranger in her own house. No, I said finally, but it means I'm not going to let you get eliminated over it. We spent that night in a motel across town, not talking much, both of us trying to process how our suburban life had turned into a crime thriller. Celeste called the kids and told them we were having marriage problems and needed some time to work things out. It was the first honest thing she'd said to them in months. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Ray called at 7 a.m. with an update that made my coffee taste like ash. David Kessler is dead. What happened? They found his body in the river this morning, 2 fire shots to the head, execution style. Tony's people don't mess around. I looked at Celeste, who was sitting on the edge of the motel bed, still in yesterday's clothes. She looked fragile and broken, nothing like the confident woman who had sent me that text message a week ago. Does this mean it's over? For David, yeah. For you and Celeste, that depends on whether Tony's people think you know where their money is. We already told them we don't know anything. Dead men don't pay debts, Jack. They're going to want to recover their losses from somewhere. What are you saying? I'm saying you need to disappear for a while. Let things cool down, let them figure out that you're not connected to David's other activities. How long? Could be weeks, could be months. These guys have long memories. I hung up and looked at Celeste. David's dead. She didn't react the way I expected. No tears, no shock, just a kind of numb acceptance. I know. What do you mean you know? I saw it on the news this morning while you were in the shower. They're calling it a suspected organized crime, eliminating. How do you feel about it? Celeste was quiet for a long time. Relieved, she said finally, and guilty about feeling relieved. Does that make me a terrible person? It makes you human. I never loved him, you know. David, I thought I did, but I think I just loved the idea of him. The excitement, the attention, the feeling that someone found me interesting again. And now I realize that what we had wasn't love. It was just 2 people using each other to avoid dealing with their real problems. What were your real problems, Celeste? Loneliness, feeling invisible, feeling like I was just going through the motions of being a wife and mother without actually living. Why didn't you talk to me about that? Because I was afraid you'd tell me I was being silly, or that you'd try to fix it with some grand gesture instead of just listening. Would I have done that? Probably. You're a fixer, Jack. You see a problem, and you want to solve it. But some problems can't be fixed. They have to be lived through. We sat in silence for a while, watching the morning news and trying to figure out what came next. The reporter was standing outside David's apartment building, talking about a rising tide of organized crime violence in the city. There was no mention of Celeste or me, which was something. Jack, can I ask you something? Sure. Did you know this would happen to David? I thought about how to answer that. Had I known Tony Marconi's people would eliminate David? No. Had I known they would hurt him? Probably. Had I cared? Not really. I knew he was in trouble with dangerous people. I knew that trouble would catch up to him eventually. Did you want him dead? I wanted him out of our lives. I didn't care how that happened. Does that make you a terrible person? Probably. But I'm okay with that. Celeste nodded like that made perfect sense. Maybe we were both terrible people. Maybe that's what 20 years of marriage and 1 week of betrayal had turned us into. My phone rang. Unknown number. Jack Vance? Who's asking? My name is Vincent. I work for Mr. Marconi. We need to talk. About what? About David Kessler and some money that's gone missing. Can you meet me this afternoon? I don't think that's a good idea. Mr. Vance, I'm not asking. Be at Murphy's Diner on Route 9 at 2 o'clock. Come alone. The line went dead. I looked at Celeste. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that involves a meeting with Tony Marconi's people this afternoon. Jack, no, don't go. Let's just leave town, start over somewhere else, and spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders. No thanks. Then what? Then I go to this meeting and try to convince them that we don't know anything about David's other activities. What if they don't believe you? Then we'll deal with that when it happens. I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. Jack, this is my fault. If anyone should face the consequences, it's me. The consequences aren't just about fault, Celeste. They're about survival. And you're not going anywhere near Tony Marconi's people. So what am I supposed to do? Sit here and wait to find out if my husband is coming back? That's exactly what you're supposed to do. And if I don't come back, you take the kids and you disappear. Change your names, move across the country, start over. I can't do that alone. You won't be alone. You'll have Eli and Lila. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant. But Celeste, there's a chance this meeting doesn't go well. And if that happens, you need to be ready to protect our kids. How am I supposed to explain to them that their father disappeared because their mother had an affair with a criminal? You tell them the truth. You tell them that sometimes adults make terrible mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes have consequences that hurt innocent people. They'll never forgive me. Maybe not, but they'll be alive to be angry about it. I spent the rest of the morning making preparations. I wrote letters to Eli and Lila, explaining what had happened and why, and sealed them in envelopes I hoped they'd never have to open. I transferred what money we had left to an account only Celeste could access. I called Ray and told him to keep an eye on my family if things went bad. At 1:30, I kissed Celeste goodbye and drove to Murphy's Diner. Vincent turned out to be a thin, well-dressed man in his 50s who looked more like an accountant than a mobster. He was sitting in a back booth, drinking coffee and reading a newspaper like he was waiting for a business meeting. Mr. Vance, thank you for coming. Let's get this over with. Straight to the point. I like that. Here's the situation. David Kessler stole approximately $400,000 from Mr. Marconi's operations over the past year. We recovered about $50,000 from his apartment, which leaves $350,000 unaccounted for. I don't know anything about that money. I believe you. But your wife was David's girlfriend, and she gave him $30,000. That makes her connected to this situation. She thought she was helping his business. She didn't know about his other activities. Ignorance isn't a defense in our line of work, Mr. Vance. What do you want? We want our money back. All of it. We don't have it. Then you're going to get it. How? Vincent slid a folder across the table. David had life insurance, $500,000 with your wife listed as the beneficiary. I stared at him. What? Apparently David was planning to marry your wife and wanted to make sure she was taken care of. The policy was purchased 8 months ago, right around the time their relationship started. Celeste doesn't know about this. She does now. The insurance company will be contacting her within the next few days. And you want us to turn over the insurance money to you. We want you to turn over $350,000 to us. What you do with the remaining $150,000 is your business. What if we refuse? Vincent smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Mr. Vance, your wife was involved with a man who stole from us. Your children go to Millbrook Elementary School. Your daughter takes dance classes on Thursday afternoons. Your son plays basketball at the community center. Refusing isn't really an option? The threat was clear, and it made my blood run cold. These people knew everything about our family, and they weren't going to let us walk away. How do we know you'll leave us alone after we pay you? Because Mr. Marconi is a businessman, not a terrorist. Once his debt is settled, you'll never hear from us again. I need to discuss this with my wife. Of course, but Mr. Vance, don't take too long. Mr. Marconi isn't a patient man. I left the diner feeling like I just negotiated a deal with the devil, but at least it was a deal we could live with, literally. I called Celeste from the parking lot. How did it go? We're going to live, but there's something you need to know about David's life insurance policy. The insurance investigator arrived 3 days later, a pleasant woman named Sarah Chen who treated David's passing like a routine paperwork exercise. She had no idea she was sitting in our living room discussing blood money with a woman whose affair had gotten her boyfriend eliminated. Mrs. Vance, I know this must be a difficult time for you. Celeste played the part perfectly. Grieving girlfriend who had lost the love of her life to random violence. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed her myself. David and I had been talking about getting married, Celeste said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. He said he wanted to make sure I was taken care of if anything happened to him. That's very thoughtful. The policy is quite substantial, $500,000. There shouldn't be any issues with the payout, since the end has been ruled a homicide, and there's no suggestion of self-destruction. How long will it take? Usually about 30 days for the paperwork to process. You should receive a check by the end of next month. After Sarah Chen left, Celeste and I sat in our living room, the same room where we'd opened Christmas presents and watched our kids take their first steps, and talked about how to pay off the mob. I keep thinking about David, Celeste said, how he manipulated me, used me, lied to me about everything, and now he's dead, and we're getting money because of it. How do you feel about that? Like we're profiting from his passing, like we're as bad as he was. Are we? I don't know, are we? I thought about that. Were we bad people? I'd destroyed a man's life and felt no remorse when he was murdered. Celeste had stolen money and lied to everyone she cared about. Our kids were going to grow up knowing their parents were capable of terrible things. Maybe, I said finally, but we're alive and our kids are safe. That has to count for something. Is that enough? Just being alive? It's a start. The insurance check arrived on a Tuesday. $500,000 minus taxes. More money than we'd ever seen at one time. Payment for a life that had been worth nothing to anyone. I called Vincent that afternoon. We have your money. Excellent. There's a parking garage on 5th Street, level 3. Be there at 8 tonight. Come alone. What about the rest? What rest? You said we could keep $150,000. That's correct. Consider it compensation for your trouble. I hung up and looked at Celeste. It's almost over. What happens after we pay them? We figure out how to live with what we've done. Together? I don't know yet. That night, I drove to the parking garage with a briefcase full of cash. Vincent was waiting by a black sedan, still looking like an accountant. Mr. Vance, I trust you have what we discussed. I handed him the briefcase. He opened it, counted the money quickly, and nodded. Pleasure doing business with you. You won't hear from us again. How do I know you'll keep your word? Because Mr. Marconi is a man of his word. And because you're not worth the trouble if you keep your mouth shut. He got in his car and drove away, leaving me standing in an empty parking garage with the knowledge that I'd just paid blood money to protect my family. I drove home slowly, taking the long way through our neighborhood. Millbrook Heights looked the same as always. Neat lawns, safe streets, the illusion of suburban perfection. But I knew now that it was just an illusion. Underneath the surface, everyone was hiding something. Celeste was waiting in the kitchen when I got home. Is it over? It's over. What do we do now? Now we decide whether we want to stay married or get divorced. What do you want? I looked at my wife, really looked at her, for the first time in months. She looked older, worn down by guilt and fear and the weight of her choices. But she also looked real in a way she hadn't for years. The mask was gone, the pretense stripped away. This was who Celeste really was underneath all the suburban respectability. I want to try, I said finally, even after everything. Because of everything. We've seen each other at our worst, Celeste. We've done terrible things and survived them. Maybe that's a better foundation for a marriage than pretending we're perfect people. What about trust? Trust is earned. You'll have to earn it back. How long will that take? I don't know, maybe years, maybe forever. Are you willing to try? Yes? Then we start tomorrow. We find a marriage counselor, we sell this house, we move somewhere new and start over. What do we tell the kids? We tell them the truth, that their parents made mistakes, hurt each other, and are trying to do better. They're going to be angry, probably, but they'll get over it. Kids are resilient. Are we? I thought about the past week. The betrayal, the fear, the violence, the blood money. We'd been through hell and come out the other side, damaged but alive. I guess we'll find out. The next morning, I called a realtor and put our house on the market. We told the kids we were moving to a new town for a fresh start, which was true as far as it went. Eli asked if it had anything to do with the men who had been asking questions about David Kessler around the neighborhood. Lila asked if we were getting divorced. We told them the truth, that their mother had made some bad choices, that we were working through our problems, and that sometimes families had to start over to heal. They took it better than expected. Kids are adaptable, and maybe they'd sensed the tension in our house long before we'd admitted it to ourselves. The house sold quickly. We paid off our debts, put money aside for the kids' college, and bought a smaller place in a different state. Not running away exactly, but starting fresh somewhere. No one knew our story. Celeste found work as a secretary at a law firm. I got a job managing projects for a construction company. We went to counseling twice a week and slowly, carefully began rebuilding our marriage from the ground up. It wasn't easy. There were fights, tears, moments when we both wondered if we were making a mistake. But gradually we began to trust each other again. Not the blind trust of our early marriage, but something harder and more honest. 6 months later, Celeste asked me if I regretted staying married to her. "Do you regret having the affair?" I asked. "Every day." "Then we're even." "Is that enough?" "It's enough for now." We were sitting on the porch of our new house, watching our kids play basketball in the driveway. They seemed happy, adjusted, and ready to move forward with their lives. Maybe that was all any of us could ask for. "Jack, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you think we're bad people?" I thought about David Kessler, lying in a morgue because he'd made the mistake of stealing from the wrong people. I thought about the insurance money sitting in our bank account like a reminder of how quickly life could change. I thought about the choices we'd all made and the prices we'd all paid. "I think we're people who did bad things," I said finally, "but I also think we're people who are trying to do better." "Is that enough?" "It has to be." That night I lay in bed next to my wife, my lying, cheating, money-stealing wife who was also the mother of my children, and the woman I'd chosen to build a life with, and thought about second chances. Not everyone gets them. David Kessler didn't get a second chance. But somehow, against all odds, Celeste and I had survived our worst impulses and found a way back to each other. It wasn't the marriage we'd had before. It was something different, scarred, complicated, built on a foundation of shared guilt, rather than shared innocence. But it was real in a way our old marriage had never been, and maybe in the end, that was enough.